don't forget 20% of your 20% of your people are going to cause 80% of your problems. So let's look at what we can do to help mitigate some of that 20%, 20 to 30% in there. And do the best that we can. And honestly, with technology now using AI of some sort, you really have no excuse not to communicate with your homeowners more often and more easily for you.
HOA Insights is brought to you by 5 companies that care about board members: Association Insights and Marketplace, Association Reserves, Community Financials, HOA Invest, and Kevin Davis Insurance Services. You'll find links to their websites and social media in the show notes.
Hi, I'm Robert Nordlund of Association Reserves.
And I'm Julie Adamen with Adamen Inc. And this is HOA Insights, where we promote common sense
for common areas. Well, welcome to episode number 97, where we're again speaking with management consultant and regular co-host Julie Adamen. Today we'll be talking about the challenge of improving homeowner satisfaction. According to a recent survey by Front Door, approximately 70% of people living in an association would rather not live in an association-governed community. And that's going to take a bit to unpack, but that's a lot of dissatisfaction. So follow along with us today as we address this challenge and what you can do about it at your association. We want to help the associations of our listeners thrive, hoping that you represent the 30% where the homeowners are satisfied and lead the way to growing that number to 40% and 50% and on and on. This is a follow-up to episode number 96, another of our bonus episodes. You may or may not have noticed that in a month with 4 Mondays, we follow a pattern of myself and co-host Julie, like today, myself and co-host Kevin Davis, myself with a subject matter episode, and an episode featuring a board hero. So in a 5 Monday month, we have room for something special. So if you missed that bonus episode number 96, take a moment after today's program and listen from our podcast website, HOAinsights.org, or watch on our YouTube channel, where you can give it a like, or better yet, subscribe from any of the major podcast platforms so you don't miss any future episodes. Well, those of you watching on YouTube can see this HOA Insights mug that I have. Proudly, Julie has one too. Very nice. That I got from our merch store, which you can browse through from our HOAinsights.org website or the link in the show notes. You'll find we have some great free stuff like board member Zoom backgrounds and some specialty items for sale like mugs. So go to the merch store, find the mug you'd like, and if you're the 10th person to email podcast@reservestudy.com with your name and address and mug choice, mentioning episode 97 mug giveaway, I'll ship it to you free of charge. We enjoy hearing from you, responding to the issues that are facing your association. So if you have a hot topic, crazy story, or a question you'd like us to address, you can contact us at 805-203-3130 or email us at podcast@reservestudy.com. But this episode is our choice because Julie and I wanted to follow up with our thoughts on this survey that you might have read about. So, Julie, what do we do?
Well, the survey was really interesting, and everybody, you could find it at frontdoor.com, but I read it, so you don't have to if you don't want to. But it was very, very interesting because it indicated that 70% of people living in a homeowners association would not recommend a homeowners association to someone else. In fact, they would like to be able to move out and have a single family home. And I just thought that was really interesting because, obviously some associations have a lot of problems and others just are normal associations. In our world, there are some problems. You're always going to have that. But for 70%, I live in a huge HOA and I like it. So, but maybe I have a little more background.
Why do you like it?
Because I know what things cost. And if I had to pay for all the amenities that are available to me, and that's food and beverage, I have several restaurants, golf, pools, pickleball, everything. I could never afford to do that on my own. I have an insight. I guess my mind goes to the insider's track. I know how much that would cost for me to personally have a swimming pool in my backyard and have to pay to go to the tennis court or pay to go wherever. I don't play pickleball, but where else are you going to find 800 different people to play pickleball with? Because that's what they have here. So it's these type of things. And having managed for a long time and been around, in and around consulting and all that, There definitely are people who just don't like living in an HOA, and some people shouldn't. But I think most people don't like it because they just don't know how an HOA works. They don't know. Well, and let me go right to the big problem that everybody had. The number one thing they don't like are the assessments. They think they're too high. And number two, they think they don't know where the money's going. So if they think they're too high and they don't know where the money's going, that makes people really touchy. And forgetting all the other things that people are, as I say, are suffering from PTSD after COVID. And last year was an election year, and everything's dialed up to 11 billion.
Right.
So you put those two things together. Hurricanes, wildfires, yes, or people in LA. I mean, and just, my goodness, it's so much stuff going on. So I got to thinking about this survey and the things that people didn't like. And as a board member, I've been a board member a few times, but as a board member, what can you do to kind of smooth this over with people? Well, the only thing you really can do, I mean, you can't control them. They're going to think how they think. But you can maybe mitigate some of those feelings by, my favorite word in the world, communicating what I would consider probably above and beyond what you would think you have to do. But that's the only way you're going to bring the people who are unsatisfied with the amount of assessments. Let's just take it where it is. Everything's too high. How are you ever going to get to them the information they're going to need to know that the assessments aren't too high? In fact, they probably should be higher at the moment, like most associations. But how do you get that information to those people in a form that they can readily understand and that would fit in the amount of time they want to spend looking at it? Now, I know Robert and I were just talking before we went on the air that he's a numbers guy, loves numbers. If you hand Robert a financial statement, he is in heaven and he's just going to sit down and read the whole thing.
It speaks to me.
Yeah, it speaks to you. Now, I'm on the other end of that. I mean, I can read a financial statement, but I'm on the other end of that. I would prefer, if it's me, I want something quick and simple because I have other things to do. And I'm thinking, I prefer to see something like a pie chart, unless I really wanted to drill down. But if you're looking at the macro, a pie chart's a great way to go. So let's start with the first thing, I think, is that simplify how you present financial statements to people and send them out. Send out that information in the simplified version every single month, more often if you need to, and if people want that information. So I know if you have a management company, typically your association will have a website that has the financials on the website that the homeowners can access. But it's either a full financial statement, which a lot of people don't understand, or it's just the balance sheet and maybe the check register, and it tells you that, which is good for a lot of people. You look at it this way: if you are a homeowner and you have a spouse, you have kids, you have a job, your spouse has a job, your life is really, really, really busy. You don't have time to sit down and read 5 pages of financial information and absorb it and have it make sense to you in the way you'll be able to process it. So I have this in my online classes for board members as well, as far as presentation of budgets and that type of thing. But I think with every month with your financial statement, pie chart, something simple that they can absorb quickly and understand that, administrative costs are not the ginormous expense. The landscaping costs are the ginormous expense, or nowadays, of course, insurance. Let's riff on insurance here, Robert, for a minute.
Yeah. While Kevin's not here.
Well, Kevin's not. Too bad. We should have all three of us on, or for our 100th episode. That would be fun.
That'd be an hour-long episode.
It would. Yeah. Well, we don't want to bore everybody to death. But anyway, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I would suspect most board members are aware of this now, that the cost of insurance has gone way up for your association. And even though you may tell people that, or it's a footnote down at the bottom of the budget, why the insurance is high, I think all of these larger costs, people should understand. I would be very specific about it. Why is insurance high? Well, Robert, why is insurance high? Or you can't get it right now. Why is that?
Kevin and I have talked about why insurance is high. It's inflation. It's the awards, the damages going up. It's lots of things like that. But something struck me in what you said, and I want to go back to it, that there's people that are dissatisfied. And if I go back years or decades, I have this number in the back of my mind of the percentage of people that should never buy a home in an association just because um, they don't play well with others. They don't get along with others, and that's always been a single digit, 3 to 5%. And I think now we have people, like you said, who are anxious. They're feeling pressure. They're feeling discontent. It's the COVID effect.
Oh, it's the COVID hangover. Yeah.
Yeah, the COVID hangover.
Yeah.
Where you're not trusting large organizations as much. So there's these factors. And so we have 70, and now we're talking about 70%. Okay, what can we do with that? Well, there's something. And you also said they don't have enough time. So there's magic in simplicity. There's magic in brevity. And if you can do what you can, because not everyone's going to read. Clearly, you're going to send out a newsletter. You're going to have monthly board meetings. You're going to do all the normal things. And people aren't going to go to board meetings. People aren't going to read the newsletter. But what can you do? Hit them from every angle. Maybe you have a notice at the mailboxes. Keep doing it and make it simple and brief. All these different things you can try, because you need to poke one way or another way to try to get that information to them. And like you say, Julie, comparing to how much more it would cost if they own their own home, is you got to do all you can.
Yeah. And so when I'm talking about this, we talk about financial specifically, and to simplify what you send out to people. You need to send out what you've got to send out, or it's on your website. But to simplify, when it comes from the board, it's got to be brief. And I have to tell you, as everyone knows, people don't have a very long attention span, brought to you by these devices. But so you have to address that. We can't just say, oh, no, they're going to read 7 paragraphs. They're not. If they get through paragraph 2, you'll be very lucky. And that's why now, and believe me, board members, I can hear you out there right now going, well, by heavens, I wrote that, or we wrote that. We want everyone to read it all. That's where all the information is. You are absolutely correct. But that does not change the fact that they're not going to read it when the information's way down in paragraph 7, and it's, it's hard to absorb and it takes time to read. It's different. It's not going to get any better.
Yeah. You need to lead off with the headlines. Inflation is real here at Happy Valley Acres, and our insurance is X% higher than last year, and we have a roof project coming up, and we need to increase our reserve funding. Now, for more details, see below. Just things like that. It's a community. You want to build the idea that it's a we. It's not the board versus them. The board, yes, the board spent an hour or 2 trying to summarize it to one page, and they have every right to want people to read that. They tried hard. They did their level best. Is there any way we can ask homeowners to try to do a better job, or is that just deflecting responsibility?
Well, doing a better job of
listening and reading and attending.
Well,
not gonna.
Oddly, in that survey, 41% of people said they had attended board meetings. So I thought that was really high. I was surprised.
Yeah.
But so even if they're attending, they may not be liking what they hear. And of course, a board meeting is not somewhere you're going to give detailed explanations or specific explanations. Otherwise, you're going to be there for 5 hours. So I think, honestly, I think it's incumbent upon us as the leaders, as board members. It would be incumbent upon us to reach people where they are. And if your folks are single parents with kids, or, mom, dad, or whatever form that takes, with jobs, they just are so busy, they don't have time for this, right? So it's very difficult to absorb it. So I think it's incumbent upon us to to communicate continuously. And I know it sounds like a lot. We're going to talk about that in just a sec. Communicate continuously. Do it in the simplest form that you possibly can. Another way, especially if it's a contentious issue, finances are often it. When it comes around budget time, or maybe even a couple times a year, just have a town hall, kind of a financial workshop, if you will. And board members, don't think it all has to be you. Bring in some experts. If you have a firm that produces your financial statement, bring them in. Your insurance has gone up. 60, 70%, bring your insurance agent in, and they're typically happy to come in and chat with the homeowners at a town hall about why that is. Bring your reserve study expert in to
Yeah.
say, okay, this is where we're at in reserves. This is what we're going to need to do. And bring your attorney in if you want someone to talk about the board's fiduciary duty, and that's why they have to raise assessments and keep up with inflation, preserve, protect, maintain. So you don't have to be the Lone Rangers out there taking all these slings and arrows and pitchforks that can be tossed at you. And expert testimony, if you will, in this type of situation works really well, really well.
Yeah, right. Because then it's not you, the board, being the bad guys. It's these other people saying these are the realities in the world that we live in. Julie, in the back of my mind, yes, I'm a numbers person. You said over 40% are attending board meetings. Do you think that's because we've gone virtual with so many board meetings? And board meeting is easier to go to?
I would say that's probably true because I know most associations now are doing that unless their documents specifically prohibit it or state law does. Here, I'm living in Arizona, and in fact, we're just get ready to, it's in the legislature now, but they're going to pass a law that everybody can now have virtual meetings because it's been so good for attendance. I believe that's one of the reasons. So good for attendance. And it's fantastic for people who are managers of community associations because those of you folks out there who have a manager, if your board meeting is at 7:00 at night, we shouldn't have those anymore, but we still do. But if your board meeting is at 7, well, your manager may get off at 5. And depending on where you live and what the commute is, they could be driving, an hour to your property to be at a meeting, and then it doesn't get out till 9 or 10 and they got an hour home. This is much better for the people in management. I will say though, I like the old school. I like being with the people. I think having in-person meetings is important.
There's just something about the physical presence.
It is. It's the feel.
Yeah. Well, Julie, I was leading because I was wondering if you don't want to go to all this effort to have a nice budget meeting and no one attends because it's just a budget meeting. I'm not a numbers person. Would it be helpful to record that? Would it be helpful? Yeah, that's, I guess, one idea. Another idea
Absolutely.
is to have the treasurer or the president or someone just say, hey, folks, in 3 minutes or 5 minutes, here's a nice little YouTube summary of what's going on here at Happy Valley for February. The budget is this. We got as you all know, we got the tennis court resurfaced. While it's wintertime, we're getting a new pool heater, so we won't have the cool pool that we had last year. Just a little update on what's going on. 5 minutes, little video.
Absolutely. No, and 5 minutes is perfect because it doesn't take long to record. And for you board members out there thinking, oh my God, I have to get a script. Well, that's what AI is for. It's a tremendous tool if you're not using ChatGPT or Grok, which is on X, or if you have a Microsoft product, you can use Copilot. You can just put in a few bullet points of what you want to cover and ask it to make a script, and boom, it comes out. If you want to adjust it, you just tell it to adjust a little bit, and you can tell it how long you want the script to be. So there's really no reason, and you can use your phone to record yourself, buy yourself a selfie stick, talk on it. You could do it in your house like we do these podcasts. As I have a home office, so it's what we do, like Robert does too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage people. Julie and I do this a lot, so we have some equipment. We have some good equipment.
Yeah.
But for a board meeting, they're not expecting you to be the nightly news.
No.
And it's okay. Get reasonable lighting, get reasonable sound, and just keep it nice and direct and smile. And like we said earlier, short and sweet and easy to consume. And that way they don't have to say, I can't get there because we have dinner with the Johnsons, or I have to take Susie to soccer practice, or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I will tell you though, yes, we do have really good equipment because we're doing these podcasts, but this is probably the best camera in your house right now. If you have an iPhone or a Samsung product or something like that, very simple to use. You can set it up. In fact, don't forget, for like the first 2 years or 3 years of the Joe Rogan podcast, largest podcast in the world, they used an iPhone. That's all they used was an iPhone. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Julie, we've talked about numbers. We've talked about communication. At this point in time, let's take a quick break to hear from one of our generous sponsors. after which we'll be back with more HOA insights on related topics.
Are you part of a homeowners association or condominium board? Making the right financial decisions for your community's future is crucial. At Association Reserves, we're proud to serve communities nationwide, specializing in reserve studies tailored to your community's unique needs. Our expert team helps you accurately assess your property's assets, forecast future expenses, and develop a solid funding plan. Whether you're a small HOA or a large condominium association, we've got you covered. Visit reservestudy.com to learn more and get a proposal for your association.
And we're back. Well, before the break, we were talking about the cost of living in an association. We talked about communication. But at this point in time, there's another friction point at associations, and that's rules. So what can a board do to make rules less
Onerous.
onerous?
Onerous. Or
Yeah.
how about
Okay.
this? We make it somewhat more user friendly, I guess I want
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
That is one of the big sticking points that people
Yeah.
have. It's the finances and it's rules enforcement, and they feel like the rules are enforced unfairly. So that is something that we can address as board members. And that is make sure your rules are being enforced fairly. Well,
Yep.
okay, how do we do that? First of all, make sure that the rules themselves are simple and easy to understand, and that they go out to the owners. I would say all the rules. Some states make you do it once a year, but I think that's a good benchmark. Once a year, rules go out. And then in enforcement, we really need to try to be as fair as we possibly can. And a part of that is keeping track of everything that's going on. If you have a management company, that they should be keeping track of that for you. Those things go through their system, and that's really good. But another thing I want to bring up as far as rules go, so rules and regulations, architectural guidelines, other major policies and guidelines, I would advise all boards to go through every ounce of those every year. Because what has a tendency to happen is that, rules that were, and it's a lot of work to redo them, but rules that were, put forth 6, 7, 8 years ago, some of those may not even be applicable. Some may be highly out of date. And of course, that makes the board look out of touch. You may be trying to enforce something that really doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, that might be like, when your kids grow up, you have different rules for different times in their lives. And could it be asking the management company, what's the number one rule that's getting broken? And do you focus on that? Once a month, you say the number one rule this month is the fire lane violations. Folks, think of what happened in California. We got to have the fire lane clear. We can't have people parking where it's a red curb. This is for your own safety. So please, please, please don't park in a red curb, even if you're just bringing groceries in. Is it something like that where you're communicating the why, and you're not the bad guy? The bad guy is fire danger, not the board.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't understand that. They're not looking at it. They're like, I'm only going to be here for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and then, but God forbid that was the time someone needed that, or not
Yep.
even just fire. I mean, think of, rescue, ambulance, that kind of thing. So yes, and I think a lot of people don't understand why they can't have that third car parked on their lawn. And oddly, in the same survey, it says that people don't like the way rules are enforced, and 30 to 40% of them, they've gotten those nasty grams from the HOA. On the other hand, the number one reason people do like their HOA, and it's almost 60%, is uniformity. They like the rules enforcement. So,
The place is nice.
The place, you don't have a car up on block somewhere, out front.
And there is a
so,
pool that's clean, and there's not people having a wild party in the pool at midnight and there's guest parking because people like to have guests, and people are not parking their third or fourth vehicle in guest parking permanently. Yeah, there's good things.
That push-pull is definitely a cognitive dissonance. And it's, having been in the industry I counted it up, it's almost 40 years. I've been saying 35 for like the last 10 years.
Well, you started when you were 5.
I did. So
Yeah.
it's 40.
Okay.
So, but it is a cognitive dissonance. And yes, it's very frustrating, but it's the truth. And the only way to even mitigate some of that, some people just like to have that. They like that turmoil in their head. But the only way to mitigate that is this type of communication. So if you're going through your rules and regulations, your architectural guidelines, yada, yada, once a year, making sure it's well written, making sure it's not overly complicated. In fact, an association I sat on the board for, before we moved, for the last 4 years, and I'd sat on it for about 4 or 5 years, 10 years prior to that, is that I rewrote, because it needed to be done, their rules and regulations. And they were so full of gobbledygook and this, things just went on and on and on, when really all you need to say is quiet time is after 10 p.m. That's all you need to say.
Well,
And so
wait. Even that, it's not that you said no noise. You said quiet time.
Mhm.
Quiet time is a good thing. No noise is punitive. And
no,
so
no, mhm.
just the way that you write them.
Oh, it's the tone of how you
Yeah,
write these
yeah.
type of things, and your newsletters. I have all kinds of stuff on my website about this. If you ever wanted to go in and look, adamen-inc.com, just Google me and you'll find me.
Yep.
But about the way boards, and I get it because you're frustrated. I mean, pick up after your dogs, there's dog poop everywhere, and blah, blah, people feel like they've been hit up with a rolled up newspaper. Well, people don't want to do that. They don't want to be feel that way. They don't want to be talked down to, and they sure don't want to be shamed on that. So what you want to do in that type of situation, and I know we pulled this, we even used the slide I used before, but it's not clean up after your dogs. It's like, maybe there's not enough pet waste stations where people walk their dogs. Wow. All of a sudden, we have a solution to the problem, and the board is being proactive and positive. And people want to be a part of something positive. They don't want to be smacked. So it's always be conscious of how you are, the tone of your correspondence, even your personal interaction. The tone is everything for boards.
Yeah. Well, we're back to communication, and that's what
We
I
are.
want to finish on here. It's not just communicating hard news, but communicate good news. Can you communicate things like a 2-bedroom just sold for a record price of $575,000? How much value is there to communicating
It's
good news?
huge value. I mean, you definitely have things you want to, guide people towards
Yeah.
following within the community. But I have a board member years and years ago who used to say, spin the halo. That's what he called it.
Ooh, I like that.
It's very descriptive. Celebrate the victories and give people the kudos that they need. So real estate, if the real estate market is going up in your area, that's definitely reflective on how your community is valued. I don't mean that, I mean how it's valued, yes, dollar-wise, but it's also its perception of value for the people who live there. And so price is going up. Yet the pool has been replastered, or whatever, that type of thing. The
Yeah.
roofs are going to be redone. People like to see that. And folks, you accompany that with a picture, even if it's just a quick e-blurb. Here's how the new pool looks. It opens on Tuesday, or whatever it is. And people love to see that. Shows them. That brings us right back to finances. It shows them where their money is going. It's going
Yeah.
to keep the upkeep.
Yeah.
And
Well,
these things all work together.
yeah, I'm liking this, because if you're finding people because of pet waste, then just why don't you spend the $200, $250 and get a new pet doggy bag? What do you call it? Pet
Waste station. Pet waste station. Yeah.
Buy a new one, and so you fix the problem. And I hear the voice of Kevin Davis in my brain of the pool gate that doesn't close. That's annoying. And you can say, oh, by the way, we heard you, and we fixed the pool gate. Here's a picture of it, where it automatically closes, and it doesn't bang with the force of a strong man when it closes. Just communicating the good things you've done for the association and giving them a little feedback saying, yeah, we heard you, and this is what we can do.
And that people, honestly, they just want to know they've been heard. I mean, this whole thing about if you're a board member and you're actually getting home, if you get emails at home, many of you do on your home email address, if you're like, oh God, I don't want to do that because I'll just get all these emails I can't answer. If you put an auto response on that, a very nice one, if this requires my personal attention, I will be returning it within, 72 hours, something like that. People just want that touch back. And for board members to physically say and tell homeowners, look, this was not working. We know it didn't work. It's been, we couldn't get a part. It's been 2 months and it's working. Yes. And then thank the committee that did it, if they were the ones that did it. Or if there was an individual board member that, spearheaded that, we want to thank Bob over here
Yeah.
for,
Shout out
or
to
Bob
the
right there.
volunteers. Yeah.
Yep. Always spin that halo, yours and theirs.
Yeah.
And you will find that over a period of time, it will build up the morale in your community and don't forget, 20% of your people are going to cause 80% of your problems. So let's look at what we can do to help mitigate some of that 20%, 20 to 30% in there. And do the best that we can. And honestly, with technology now using AI of some sort, you really have no excuse not to communicate with your homeowners more often and more easily for you.
Yeah. And I like this idea of thanking the volunteers, which is a reminder to the residents that this place is run by volunteers, and then mentioning the association. Here at Riverview Villas, we're happy that the pool gate is finally fixed or something like that. So that reminds them that we are a community. We are different than the houses down the street. We're different from the other houses down the street. We're different from the apartments across the street. We are what did I just say? Riverview Villas?
Riverview.
Yeah. We are. And that helps build so many good things. Well,
it does.
Julie, as always, it's great talking with you. Any closing thoughts to add at this time?
No, I'm just going to go back to what we've said. And we talk about this all the time. And having been in this industry now for 40 years, everything does come down to communication. What you communicate and how you communicate it. And when the people are unhappy, it's typically because they don't have all the right information. And it's up to us as board members to give them that right information as often as is necessary, whether you do it through management or through yourself, and watch how we say things and make sure that our rules are being enforced evenly, because that goes to your credibility, board members. If you don't enforce rules evenly, you lose your credibility and people don't want to follow you. So make sure those are done. Make sure and look at your stuff every year. Make sure what you're enforcing is even relevant now. So these are the type of things that will make your community much easier for you to manage. It'll help you stay happier, and helping you stay happier is having more happy homeowners.
Fantastic. Well, we hope you learned some HOA insights from our discussion today that helps you bring common sense to your common areas. We look forward to having you join us for another great episode next week.
You've been listening to HOA Insights, common sense for common areas. If you like the show and want to support the work that we do, you can do so in a number of ways. The most important thing that you can do is engage in the conversation. Leave a question in the comments section on our YouTube videos. You can also email your questions or voice memos to podcast@reservestudy.com or leave us a voicemail at 805-203-3130. If you gain any insights from the show, please do us a huge favor by sharing the show with other board members that you know. You can also support us by supporting the brands that sponsor this program. Please remember that the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the hosts and guests, with the goal of providing general education about the community association industry. You'll want to consult licensed professionals before making any important decisions. Finally, this podcast was expertly mixed and mastered by Stokelight Video and Marketing. With Stokelight on your team, you'll reach more customers with marketing expertise that inspires action. See the show notes to connect with Stokelight.